Okay, let me start by acknowledging the support I've received from DITA to enable me live comfortably at college, college Mayo, Deusto, to enable me do this work. I thank you for your support, Maria and the others. Yeah. And also for giving me a very good office space, which enabled me to work. Now, in this study, I am proposing the incorporation of the tuning approach in higher education curriculum reforms and the course designs in order to enhance graduates' competencies. And what I did, I collected views from stakeholders. Stakeholders in this case are students and academic staff. Maybe briefly, there is a general consensus from the public and also from employers that the graduates we produce in our universities in Tanzania, they lack competencies and skills which are necessary for the jobs, and therefore they cannot compete. They cannot compete in the job market. And there's also a claim that many employers, big employers, prefer employing foreigners, Kenyans, Ugandans, than Tanzanians because of competencies. So on the basis of that, I wanted to find how we can incorporate this tuning methodology into higher education curriculum reforms, which we have undertaken many in Tanzania and also in course designs. Now, before I go there, I want to briefly take you to just a bit about higher education system in Tanzania, the way it operates, very briefly. But in short, when we say higher education in Tanzania, we mean university education. Universities and the university colleges, they form what we call a higher education system. But we have in the system, which I'm saying is binary or dual, we have universities, both public and private, and also we have non-university institutions, both private and public. Universities are mandated to offer degrees from first degree to doctorates and conduct research by law. Non-university institutions, by law, and which established many of them, they're not supposed to offer degrees. They offer what we call diplomas and certificates. So in our system, we had what we call ordinary diploma and advanced diploma, which they say is equivalent to a degree. And their main mission is to produce what we call middle level manpower, technicians at the middle level. So you have degrees, and then, but now they also offer what we call, they call them professional degrees, because now a degree is more marketable in terms of social status. People prefer degrees in terms of advanced diploma. So these institutions also now, they have abandoned their mission of training middle level manpower. They're also offering what we call professional degrees, which are supposed to be competence-based. We have 59 universities in total, 48 private and 11 public. Public, I mean university which is funded by the government. They employ about 9,000 academics. Total enrollments, as you can see, 218,958 students. So our enrollment is very low compared to Kenya. But 66 of the total enrollment is in public universities and 33 in private universities. Although we have many private universities, they outnumber public universities. But the enrollment is small because of inadequate infrastructure. We didn't have private universities until 19 1998, when the government liberalized the higher educational sector to allow private providers. But otherwise, we didn't have private universities in Tanzania until 1998. But now we have several, but the enrollment is small because of inadequate infrastructure. And as I was saying, they are basically they are demand driven, you know, trying to absorb the demand for degrees, which cannot be met by public universities. And they're also for profit. Most of them are for profit, although it is essentially disguised, but they are for profit. We know. I know what I'm talking about. Look at the fees they charge. They are basically for profit. Again, the majority of staff in universities, both private and public, but particularly in private universities, they are what we call assistant lecturers. I think we know the academic ranks in our universities is British. So we begin with the tutorial assistant. That is the lowest level, entry level. With the first degree, you become a tutorial assistant or tutorial fellow. And then when you get a master's, you become an assistant lecturer. You get a doctorate, you become a lecturer, and then from there move senior lecturer, assistant professor. And this is a British system. So the majority of academic staff in our universities are assistant lecturers, which to me is implications also on the kind of graduates. So they do a lot of teaching. We have very few professors, very few, about 5% or less. And most of them are retired. They are retired, they work on contract. Our retirement, compulsory retirement age is 60 years old. That's for all civil servants. If you are employed by the government, you are supposed to retire at 60, but then you can be employed on contract until you reach 70. We have a problem, inadequate government budgetary allocations to public universities. So because of that, we have inadequate teaching and learning facilities. But more so in a private university, they have more financial problems than public universities because they depend on student loans, which are provided by the Higher Education Students Loans Board. This is a higher education financing facility owned by the government, whereby students, they go and borrow, pay tuition in universities. So most of the private universities, they depend on this, not have any other source of income. Tanzania Commission for Universities is a regulatory agency for all universities, both private and public, in terms of quality assurance, accreditation of the programs, and that kind of thing. But for non-university institutions, we have the National Council for Technical Education. This for non-university institutions. That's a regulatory agency. Now, I think I can say a lot about higher education in Tanzania, but I think for now this is okay. This is okay. Now let's get back to the study. This study was basically motivated by a 2014 survey of employers' opinion of graduate competencies in the East African region, conducted by the Inter-University Council of East Africa. I think East African region is Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda originally, but now we have on board Rwanda and Burundi. So we have 5 countries forming what we call the East African community. So this survey was conducted by the Inter-University Council of East Africa, which is also an intergovernmental higher education organ of the East African community, which deals with quality assurance, regional integration, education, and some other issues. So from this survey, 61% of university graduates in Tanzania lack the requisite job skills, according to the survey from employers' opinion, and in most cases unfit for the jobs they apply. In Uganda, it was 63% of the university graduates also lacked competent and skills required for the jobs. We don't have data for Kenya, is not included, but this is what motivated me. And the study concludes that graduates from the East African universities lacked employability skills. Why? Due to massive enrollment expansion and inadequate teaching and learning resources. This was the conclusion from the study. I agree with the enrollment expansion. We have expanded. I mean, many universities in East African region, they enroll more than their capacity. This is because of the demand for degrees in the education. So massive enrollment expansion is true, but on the other hand, we have inadequate teaching and learning resources, particularly in private universities, but mainly in public universities, because the government doesn't invest enough financial resources in universities. So this was the reason given by the East African, from the survey. But in my view, on the other hand, I think lack of employability skills of our graduates is because, what I think is because they don't apply, course designers don't apply a tuning approach in course design and also curriculum reforms. So this is the premise of the study, the background. We have another survey by Tanzania Private Sector Foundation. Also, they came out with the same conclusions that Tanzanian graduates, university graduates lack communication skills. They cannot express themselves. They cannot write. Basic skills required for the jobs they don't have. Now, basically, these were the objectives of the study. Basically, 4 objectives. One was to find out the level of understanding and the awareness of the tuning approach among academic staff and its significance in curricular reforms and course design at the University of Dar es Salaam. The University of Dar es Salaam is one of the participating universities in a tuning project from phase 1 and phase 2. So we have been in tuning since its inception. I mean, in Africa, tuning Africa 1 and 2, we have been there. I also wanted to know the views of the academic staff about graduate unemployment and also the question of underemployment, because there are 2 things: unemployment or underemployment, whereby a lawyer would go and teach in a secondary school because you cannot find a law firm to employ you. That is unemployment. And also the potential application of the approach in curriculum reform as a strategy for enhancing graduate competencies to reduce graduate unemployment. 3, I wanted to find out the views of the academic staff on the market-driven degree programs introduced by the universities, both public and private, whether these are competence or skill-based, whether they are relevant, and whether they contribute to national development, and also whether these market-driven degree programs enhances graduates' employability. Maybe I should say briefly about what we call market degree programs and courses. In our context, particularly in public university, due to the inadequate government funding to public universities have to survive in different ways. One one of the strategies for survival is to design courses which they attract, which they think they are marketable, fancy courses which attract market. They can be sold to customers, and this is a popular strategy in many universities. You design a program which you think is marketable, or you package a course. We have major departments in schools. If you think a course is not selling, for example, the Department of Literature in my university was at one time going to close because people are not enrolling in literature and humanities, social sciences. So that's what we call market-driven degree programs. But also I wanted to find out graduate student views on graduate unemployment solutions and the potential application of tuning approach in curriculum design to make university education more competence-based. So basically, these are the objectives on which research questions are based. So the objectives are essentially research questions. The methodology I used in this study is a case study using the University of Dar es Salaam, particularly the School of Education. Why? Because, as I said earlier, the University of Dar es Salaam is participating university in tuning project 1 and 2, but also the University of Dar es Salaam is one of the oldest public university in Tanzania. Of course, in terms of student enrollment now, the new University of Dodoma is surpassed us, but it's the oldest university, and it has a history of implementing several curriculum reforms, and they have designed new courses through what we call institutional transformation program. The School of Education is one of the oldest schools in the university, very old. It dates back to the 1960s, and that's why you have actually professional teachers well versed in curriculum design, curriculum implementation, curriculum evaluation. So that was the reason. Sample size 110 respondents, 89 master students who volunteered to participate in the program, and 21 academic staff were strategically selected to reflect their experience in curriculum design, implementation, and also seniority. All members of the curriculum staff in this sample had PhDs and more than 20 years of curriculum design and implementation and evaluation. The School of Education is about 80 members of academic staff. So I picked the 21, which is about 25% of the total population. Data analysis collection, both qualitative and quantitative data, but data was collected through self-administered questionnaire containing of open and closed-ended items, and also extensive documentary review. And I did some sort of quantitative analysis and through Microsoft Excel, and also some qualitative data analysis through content analysis. So that is about the methodology. And now I want to briefly highlight on major findings, because I'm talking about major findings, and this is highlight. Number one is about academic staff awareness of tuning approach and related concept, because I wanted also to find out if they were aware of the related concepts like outcome-based education, outcome-based teaching and learning, whether they were aware of this concept and whether they apply or not. So from my study, 57% of the sample were aware of the approach and significance in curriculum reform and course design. 43% claimed they were unaware of the tuning, but they claimed that they are sure they have been using tuning approach in one way or another. All were familiar with two concepts which are related to tuning: outcome-based education and outcome-based teaching and learning. And about 81% said the two concepts were applied in course design at the University of Dar es Salaam, although I'm not quite sure this whether outcome-based education and outcome-based teaching and learning applies in our situation, but this is the claim. The other issues, academic staff use on application of tuning to reduce graduate unemployment. 62% were sure that if a tuning approach is applied in education curriculum reforms and course design, it can enhance graduate competencies and skills for employment. And therefore, to them, tuning approach was part of the solution to graduate unemployment in Tanzania, but they recommended capacity building of academic staff in using the approach, and some kind of a paradigm shift or change of mindset from the current dominant teacher-centered approach, university teaching, and also caution on consideration of cultural factors when we are using tuning approach. So from the study, also those from documentary review, the dominant teaching approach in our universities basically is teacher-centered, because there's no way you can teach a class of 1,200 students using interactive method. It cannot happen. So most of the time, use lecture method. That's what works. At times you have a class. If a course is compulsory, we can have a class of 2,000 students in one class. So work from one corner with the mic. So basically, this is the explanation. And maybe this explains why our graduates lack skills probably after graduation. But I think that is also a problem. Then academic staff views on graduate unemployment and causes and what they recommended. 48% supported a popular conception that this is popular, that Tanzanian graduates lack employability skills because university education is not competence-based. This is a common view even from Association of Tanzania Employers and also Tanzania Private Sector Foundation, which is the largest foundation bringing together these private employers. This is what they think, even parents. So this 48% supported this view. I'm calling it popular in quote and quotes. And they recommended to review university curricula to emphasize on competencies and practical skills, and also to train university teachers to design competence-based degree programs and courses, and also the government provide adequate resources, both financial and also human. These were the recommendations. So in your case, we talk about a degree program. A degree program is made up of courses. So the two things probably at times they appear the same, but we talk about a degree program. For example, Bachelor of Arts in Economics, but within that we have courses which are taught through a modular system. I want also to know, to get the views from respondents whether university education is aligned to the labor market needs. And 67% of my respondents observed that university education in Tanzania was theoretical, and was not aligned to the labor market needs. And of course, this is again a view which is shared also by employers, that our education is basically theoretical, and mainly I think because of inadequate teaching and learning facilities. As I was saying, you cannot teach a class of 2,000 students by using PowerPoints or some other skills. You have to, I think that is explainable. So their view is that it was theoretical and not aligned to the labor market. And these are the recommendations. Design competence-based curricula involve potential employers of graduates and labor market experts in curriculum design. Adopt competence-based teaching and learning, and then conduct regular graduate tracer studies to get feedback from employers and also from students. These were the views. There are views on market-driven degree programs. 90% of the academic staff said market-driven courses offered at the university and in other universities were not competence-based and skill-based. Why? Because many courses are introduced without labor market needs assessment. It's not done. And again, many are introduced on ad hoc basis. Curriculum designers are not trained in competence-based curriculum design, and also they are profit-oriented, these courses, profit motive, because as I said, these market-driven courses are part of the strategies for extra income generation for department, university, and units, because the government doesn't fund us adequately. So we have to find a way of survival. So there's profit motive, and also the question of poor teaching and learning conditions. And I think these are basically valid reasons from the context. Relevance to national development. 76% said no. Why? Because these so-called market-driven courses, they focus on short-term labor market needs, which saturates with the time. So they address short-term labor market needs, but also the courses are motivated by the urge to generate extra income, which I agree. Again, the courses address sector labor market needs. They are not holistic. So you look at the needs of the sector, agriculture, animal husbandry, economy, they are not holistic. And they are not aligned to the nation's strategic development plans and needs. And again, the observation that teaching and learning methodologies used in these courses cannot make them address national needs. As I said, our main teaching method is lecture. Whether they enhance graduates' unemployment, employability, 50% says yes, others says no. And the reasons, again, those who said no, again, they're introduced without comprehensive labor market needs assessment, not competence-based. They are designed on ad hoc basis. Teaching is more teacher-centered, they're irrelevant, and they're not focused on enhancing ability for self-employment. That was about views on tuning approach and whether it can enhance employment. Now, the other issues related to that, I wanted respondents, both students and the teachers, to rank in terms of priority the generic competencies for employability most wanted by employers. So I did a literature survey of what employers want most in terms of competencies and skills from graduates. And for example, I went through the European Commission, employers' perception of graduates' employability, National Association of Colleges and Employers, the Job Outlook survey for 2016, and then another survey from South Africa. And I came out with 14. All these surveys, they point out 14 important competence wanted by the employers. One is the ability to work in teams. Two is decision making. Three is ability to solve organizational problems. 4, ability to communicate verbally. 5, technical knowledge or technical skills related to the job. 6, ability to plan, organize work. 7, ability to obtain and process information. And then quantitative skills, ability to analyze quantitative data, proficiency with computers, software programs, ability to write technical reports or professional reports, adaptability or flexibility, leadership skills, time management, and critical thinking and analysis. So I asked both students and teachers to rank these attributes which comes from surveys, and this is the ranking you see. This is according to the faculty. So to them, in terms of priority rank ordering, critical thinking and analysis is important, followed by technical skills, and as you can see. And the last one, according to the faculty, is proficiency with computer software programs. That's in terms of importance. The last one. For students, that is the rank ordering of generic competencies. So again, they have also critical thinking and analysis as number 1, technical skills related to the job, decision making, ability to work in a team, ability to solve problems, verbal communication, time management, leadership skills, and to them, quantitative skills is the last one. I mean, it's according to their view. Where students and faculty concur in rankings, we have 3 competencies. They rank with the same: critical thinking and analysis, technical skills or knowledge related to the job, and the verbal communication skills. In other rankings, they differ. But again, with our educational system, I doubt whether we can be able to, with the competence number 1, critical thinking and analysis, where you have a class of we have a class of 2,000 students. I don't know how that can be possible, technical skills and knowledge. But that is it. And I wanted also to know from student view about graduate unemployment causes and application of tuning and competence-based teaching and learning. All student respondents agreed that university education is theoretical. So the students also agreed that university education in Tanzania is theoretical. Graduates lack the innovation, and also they lack job skills. They have also a view that the application of tuning approach and the competence-based teaching and learning can enhance competencies and graduates' employability. And they also think graduate unemployment and underemployment were serious problems in Tanzania, mainly caused by graduates' lack of competencies in the skills required for the job. But also they pointed out other causes, irrelevant curricula to the job market, massive expansion of education without corresponding expansion of teaching and learning facilities, and also financing. Teaching and learning approaches are not competence-based. Degree programs are not competence-based. And also, their view, lecturers lack knowledge in designing competence-based programs. What universities should do? There is something missing here. What is that though? One slide is disappeared from this. But apart from saying this, the student made recommendations to the universities. So what should universities do to solve the problem of graduate unemployment and also competencies? One is to design competence-based curricula. This was the most popular view. And then they proposed to design relevant curricula to the labor market in consultation with the employers. And then they proposed to include self-employment skills in the curriculum, or entrepreneurship skills in the curriculum. And then they proposed change of student assessment and evaluation. Currently, our student assessment is based on examinations only. So students think there is a need of changing examination, mode of assessment to capture even competencies of students. And then use of innovative teaching and learning approaches. And also they think lecturers should be taught how to design competence-based degree programs. That was what universities should do. Now, as a conclusion, very brief, and this is what I believe, that on the basis of findings that there are great potentialities of applying tuning approach and the competence-based teaching and learning in design and also implementation of university curricula to enhance graduate unemployability. From the views of my respondents, although the sample is limited, I can conclude that. But there are challenges to tuning application in our case. One is poor teaching and learning conditions. As I pointed out earlier, we teach large classes. Teaching is a problem. Large classes, 2,000 students with a microphone, and it's really a problem. So at times now teaching in university is no longer interesting because of this. We have also a question of inadequate financial and human resources, of shortage of academic staff. many professors are retiring, and employment in government universities is controlled by the government. So you cannot employ anybody you want. Again, lack of training in the teaching approach. And I can see also the problem of the dominance of teacher-centered approach. Teacher-centered approach because of large classes. I think that's, to me, I think that's, there is no way you can have an interactive teaching session with 1,500 students. Or you have a class of 200 master's students. It's not possible. With that, I thank you for listening.